Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. Today we're looking at the 2026 governor's elections map and going through a hypothetical best case scenario for the Republicans. Now, I did just a few days ago make a video going over the best case scenario for Democrats for the governor's map. So in today's video, I'm doing the opposite, obviously, and going over the Republicans' best case scenario. Now, the current polling data shows President Trump is polling at a record low for his second term of negative 12.7%. And the Democrats are polling at a record high at plus 4.8% for the midterms in 2026. So a Republican best case scenario for 2026 is certainly not likely, but still thought after doing the Democratic one, let's go through the map and see what the Republicans could potentially do. Now, there are 36 governor elections up in 2026. Without further ado, let's look at the states I view as safe for the Republicans. These are states I expect at the end of the day will be more than 15% margin of victory when everything is said and done. First, for the Republicans, I expect these states to be Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, South Carolina. Then we can move into the Northeast, where Vermont, with Republican Liberal Governor Phil Scott, who is a Republican, certainly more of a moderate one, if he runs for re-election, I expect will be a safe win. And even though in my current prediction I have it as likely Republican, in the best case scenario for the GOP, I think it's possible Kelly Ayotte wins re-election by more than 15 points, as she would only need an additional roughly 6% or so from 2024 to 2026 to do so. I think we could see New Hampshire be a safe state for the GOP. This puts the Republicans already at 12 governor's races. Now the states that I think no matter what are going to be safe wins for the Democrats. Again, 15 points or more. I think we see Oregon and California and Hawaii all being safe for the Democrats. Really not too much of a competition there. I think we're going to see the state of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. All these will be more than 15 points for the Democrats, even in the best case scenario for them. Maryland, I think, will ultimately be a safe Democratic win for Wes Moore. And the state of Illinois, very blue state, will be a safe win for the Democrats as well. And just lastly, the state of Colorado, right around a 15-point margin, I expect will be safe for the Democrats. So with that, I have the Democrats at 9, Republicans at 12, and now we have 15 states remaining. Now, I have this next category as likely for the Republicans and for the Democrats. Likely meaning a margin of victory of in between 15 points and 5 points, sort of a wide range, but in between 5 and 15. Now, first things first, with the Republican seats, I'm going to start with the state of Alaska. Now, this is contingent on Democrat Mary Peltola not running for the governor's race. If she does not decide to run, I think Lieutenant Governor Nancy Dahlstrom wins this governor's race. Ranked choice voting may be required, but I think winning it by more than 5 points is certainly very attainable in the best case scenario if Peltola is not running at the end of the day. In the state of Texas, with Greg Abbott running for, I believe, a 4th term in the state of Texas, his approval ratings are pretty strong heading into this year, and I think Texas will re-elect Greg Abbott for a 4th term by more than 5 points, but under 15 points, right around a 9 to 10 point margin, if not maybe a little bit more in the best case scenario. For the state of Kansas, this is currently held by Democrat Governor Laura Kelly, but seeing that she is term limited, in the GOP's best case scenario, I think this is a race that's going to be a flip anyway, but I think we still see it fall under 15 points, but certainly closer on the high end, with the Republicans flipping a Democratic governor's race from blue to red, first of the 2026 cycle. The next state I would consider in the likely Republican category would be the state of Ohio. Ohio, Vivek Ramaswamy is running against either Amy Acton or Tim Ryan as the Democratic candidate, and when everything is said and done, I fully expect we'll see Vivek Ramaswamy win this governor's race by more than 5 points in the GOP's best case scenario. This puts Republicans at 16, Democrats at 9. The state of Iowa usually is in the lean category for my most recent predictions, but in the Republicans' best case scenario, I think Representative Randy Feenstra capitalizes off of this Republican national environment and makes the Iowa governor's race go a little bit more red over Democrat Rob Sand, putting it a little bit over 5 points. This puts Republicans 17, Democrats at 9. Now, we do still have a handful of states I think will ultimately go likely for the Democrats, first being the state of New York, which even though it was very competitive between Kathy Hochul and Lee Zeldin back in 2022. Even in the best case scenario, I think we've seen Hochul's polling numbers rebound enough where versus Elise Stefanik, we're going to see this race go Democratic by more than 5 points. Though it could be on the closer end like 2022 was, I still think we see at least a 5-point victory in the state of New York for Kathy Hochul. In the state of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro facing off against Stacey Garrity. Garrity should do a lot stronger than Doug Mastriano did back in 2022. That should be a given without a doubt. But with Josh Shapiro's approval numbers still holding very strong, I think we still see Pennsylvania go by over 5 points, but under 15 in these governor elections, even in the GOP's best case scenario. But Pennsylvania is certainly one to keep an eye out for. The last state I have as likely for the Democrats is the state of New Mexico. New Mexico is a state that has shown some competitiveness in 2020 and 2016 with third-party vote, but 2024 didn't really seem to be too much of a competitive state. Even in the Republicans' best-case scenario, New Mexico doesn't really seem to be a state that the Republicans are targeting, and ultimately I think it'll go Democratic by at least 5 points when everything is said and done. Now, there are a few states that I think the Republicans could potentially try and target, but do narrowly tilt in the Democratic advantage in the lean Democratic category of 1 to 5 points. First being Tim Walz in the state of Minnesota. Now, the biggest reason I have for this is once a political figure like a governor or senator makes a run for president and is at the top of the party ticket, or things like that come out, we could see a potentially closer race, as candidates essentially take it for granted that they were just at the top of the ticket, and they think, well, I'm not going to lose my governor's race. I was just a nominee for vice president or president, and it is potential in the Republicans' best case scenario, Minnesota could maybe catch Tim Walz a little bit off guard here. Now, I do think Tim Walz has high enough approval ratings in Minnesota, in the state that voted for Kamala Harris by a little bit under 5 points in 2024, for Walz to win re-election for a third term, which has not been done in Minnesota, I believe, either ever or in a very long time, if so. But I do think it could potentially fall under 5 points and make it a competitive race. Another state similar to Minnesota is the state of Maine, where Janet Mills is term limited and it will be an open race. Now, the added benefit for the GOP in Maine is that there are a lot of Democrats running and it's a completely wide open field. On the Republican side, it's also completely wide open with several Republicans running as well, including Jonathan Bush, a cousin, I believe, of former President George W. Bush. Now, Bush, if he became the Republican nominee, the Bush family has pretty extensive ties to the state of Maine and the Kennebunkport area, and could become a very formidable Republican candidate with the amount of money that he can pour into this race. So I think Maine, even though it still is more of a Democratic state, and I put it as lean for the Democrats, could potentially become very competitive in the Republicans' best case scenario, as the Bush Republican could potentially make this race more competitive. Especially as Maine is certainly a mix of very MAGA Republicans in the 2nd district, and the few Republicans living in the 1st district probably being more on the moderate Republican side, could open up the possibility for a competitive race if Bush becomes the Republican nominee. This puts Republicans at 17 still. Democrats are at 14. Now we get into the seats that I think are going to be the most competitive and the ones who can consider lean for the Republicans. First being the state of Nevada, with the Republican Governor Joe Lombardo, who won by a lean margin in 2022 against Steve Sisolak, the Democratic governor at the time. Now, Nevada this time around will likely be Aaron Ford, the Attorney General, facing off against Lombardo. Lombardo sitting in a pretty strong position right now with pretty strong approval ratings above 50%, heading into the 2026 midterms. Now, in the 26 midterms, in the best case scenario, it is possible Lombardo could win by more than 5 points, but given that Nevada has been perpetually competitive over the last really 3 presidential cycles and the last few governor and midterm cycles, I think we're going to see Nevada still be under 5 points and be very close, but Lombardo is certainly in position to win re-election in the state of Nevada. The next state that I think Republicans are in potential to hold by a lean margin is the state of Georgia. Now, Georgia is going to be interesting because Brian Kemp is term limited and there's going to be a new Republican candidate. Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones has the endorsement of President Trump and is currently the odds-on favorite to win the Republican primary against, I believe it is Chris Carr, the Attorney General, and Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State. Though I think all 3 of those Republicans in the general election, in the GOP's best case scenario, would likely defeat Keisha Lance Bottoms, the former mayor of Atlanta, and leading candidate for the Democrats to be governor of Atlanta at this current point in time. So I put Georgia in the lean Republican category at this current moment. This puts the Republicans at 19, Democrats 14. Now there are 3 remaining governors' races, and these are ones I'd consider to be in the tilt category. First things first, the state of Michigan. Michigan's a very special case because this isn't just a Democrat versus Republican election. This is a Democrat versus Republican versus a quote-unquote independent. So the way the polling is shaping up, Democrat Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson will be the Democratic candidate, Republican U.S. Representative John James will be the Republican candidate, and independent mayor of Detroit, Mike Duggan, will be running on the ticket as well. Duggan is taking a very considerable amount of support, anywhere from 10 to 20 points, depending on the poll, and it's shaping up to be a very close race of both Benson and James getting around 38 to 40% as Duggan takes the rest of the vote away. The polling has showed a very tight race on this one, but in the Republicans' best case scenario, I think we could see John James narrowly pulling ahead and winning this race, flipping it to the Republican category. The only reason I'm putting it as tilt, which is 1 point or under, is given the fact that Gretchen Whitmer won re-election by roughly, I believe it was 10 points back in 2022. Even in the Republicans' best case scenario, that is still a quite sizable flip in a race 4 years later. But John James, even without President Trump at the top of the ticket to help drive out turnout, given the race could be split by an independent that was more aligned with Democrats and Republicans, could potentially give the Republicans just enough to flip the state of Michigan when everything is said and done. Now, right next door to Michigan, we have the state of Wisconsin, where Tony Evers, the Democratic governor, is not running for re-election. This opens up the race. The Democratic Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez right now is the leading candidate to become the Democratic nominee, and if she does, will face off against likely Republican candidate Tom Tiffany, the U.S. Representative. Now, Tom Tiffany, I've seen in some comment sections on the YouTube channel, is described as a Republican that could potentially appeal to both Scott Walker type of Republicans and to Donald Trump MAGA Republicans, so he can kind of, similar to a Bush but a little bit more conservative, toe that party line and try and get as many Republicans and Republican-leaning independents as possible in the state of Wisconsin, which in a governor election is going to be very close. All eyes are going to be on the surrounding Madison suburban counties like President Trump was able to win in 2024. If Tom Tiffany can do that, I think we could see him pull off a very narrow victory of about 1 point in the state of Wisconsin in the Republicans' best case scenario. Another governor's race flipping from blue to red. Now, the last one I have to go over is the state of Arizona, where Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs defeated Kari Lake by 0.5% in the 2022 midterm elections. And ever since that election was certified, all eyes for the Republicans have been on Katie Hobbs and trying to defeat her in 2026. Now, the Republicans have Andy Biggs and Karen Taylor Robson both having the co-endorsement of President Trump running on the Republican side. The early polling has shown Katie Hobbs leading both candidates by 1 to 3 points, depending on the poll that you're looking on. So it's a very close race with a lot of undecideds left out there, but Katie Hobbs is leading over the two Republican candidates. And the concern among some Republicans is that more conservative and more MAGA Republicans in Arizona have not done too well recently. The only outlier being Donald Trump winning Arizona in 2024 against Kamala Harris. The down-ballot Republicans like Kari Lake, Blake Masters, they have not had as much success at the top of the ticket. So with Andy Biggs, who's one of the most conservative members of the House, being at the top of the ticket in all likelihood based on the Republican primary polling, the Republicans could win this race, but it could also end up being one where the Katie Hobbs nearly holds on due to the fact that he is super, super conservative. But in the Republicans' best case scenario, I think we see enough vote splitting for Andy Biggs to narrowly pull off an upset and hold on to roughly half the marches President Trump made in Maricopa County, leading to an under 1 point victory, flipping another Democratic seat from blue to red. So in the Republicans' best case scenario for 2026, I have the Republicans winning 22 governor's races to Democrats winning 14, with President Trump winning Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania in 2024, Republicans flipping the governor's races in Wisconsin, Michigan, and also flipping the governor's race in Arizona. It should be worth noting, of the main battleground states that Trump won in 2024 that are up for governor elections in 2026, in this scenario, the only state that is not the case is Pennsylvania, and that is due to the fact that Josh Shapiro holds very strong approval ratings. So that is what I have for you in today's video. Republicans 22, Democrats 14. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, also make sure to go check out my Democratic best case scenario for the 2026 governor's elections. I think you'll like that one very much as well. And make sure to check out my other videos I just put out that are also best case scenarios for Democrats and Republicans for House, Senate, and the other governor mentions that I did as well. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to hit like and subscribe, and hope to see you in a future video.